Hey everybody, today in the podcast I have a special guest, Ashley Stock from Little Miss Mama, visiting with me. We're going to be chatting through grief, authenticity, bravery, all the things. Plus, she's designed a recent collection with us, so we're going to be going over style and more. Welcome to the podcast with Kilee Nichols. The goal of this podcast is to inspire you through both my story and the stories of other powerhouse women to take that first step towards living the best version of your life. So grab a notebook, grab a pen, and get ready to get started with Kilee Nichols. Hey everybody, happy Friday. I'm Kilee and you are back with Kilee Nichols, and today I have a really special guest. I'm so excited to have Ashley Stock of Little Miss Mama on the podcast with me today.
Yay, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so much to talk about and so excited to have you here today. So Ashley is a wife, a mom of three. She's been a blogger since way before I was blogging. She's one of the originals, I feel like, in my mind. She's got an oil business. She just really leads with so much vulnerability, authenticity is like such a good example of, I feel like, what it means to be an influencer on the internet right now. So excited to actually get to talk in person. I know we've crossed paths several times over the years. We've sent you earrings several times from Nickel and Suede.
Yep,
So yeah, just excited to dive in.
me too. I'm so excited. This is long overdue, connecting face to face. I mean, I've been a huge personal fan of Nickel and Suede for years and have been, gosh, just wearing your pieces since the very, very early days.
Yeah. When we so appreciated that, there are certain people in my heart that I'm like, oh, they wore this at the beginning and it made such a difference. And you're one of those, having been a supporter for that long. And so, really excited to finally not only talk person to person, face to face, but we have a collaboration coming out together. So Ashley's collaborated with us, partnered to design some styles that are fit her personal style, fit our style, and really are just, I'm so excited to share them with everybody. So
Me
we've
too.
we've got this collection. It's called California Dreamin'. Ashley's from California, and she's actually wearing one of the pieces right now on the podcast. Those havens look great. So
Thank
we'll
you.
dive into the inspiration and all the things. So I'll let you do some talking. Let's get going on. I'll have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, your family.
Of course. Oh, that's always such a daunting question, right? Like,
I
where do
agree.
you
It's not
start?
fair.
How much do you share? What
Uh
do
huh.
people really care? No, I'm teasing. Okay, so I'm Ashley Stock, and that is correct. Born and raised in California, never lived anywhere else anytime that I think I can, because I'm one of those people who, when I go on vacation, I'm always convinced that that's the place that I'm going to live forevermore. I'm like, I'm going to move here. I went on vacation here, and my husband and I will like plan our whole lives in the random town that we're visiting. And then before I know it, like we're going home from vacation and I pull into our town. I'm like, oh, I can never leave. So, yes, California girl, it's where
Mm,
my roots are. Can't drift too far. I
yeah.
married my husband Ben. It'll be 15 years ago this week, next week, sometime soon. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And he is from Cheyenne, Wyoming. So, California girl took took my Midwest boy and brought him out here. I am mom to three kiddos. My oldest, Wesley, will turn 12 this week, and my middle is Sawyer, and he will turn 9 this week. And then my youngest
Mm,
is Stevie, and she would be 4. She passed away last year, just shortly after her third birthday. Um, Let's see. I started blogging at littlemissmama.com, but I spell mama Momma, just because that's how I spelled it when I was a kid, when I would write my mom's Mother's Day cards, and didn't realize
mm-hmm.
that that's not how most of the world spells mama. But I started blogging. Oh my gosh, you're right. It's been over a decade. Let's see. Wesley, who's turning 12, was probably about 6 months old when I discovered the world of what was then like Blogspot. And
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
there were people blogging for like a living, but I didn't know that. And instead,
yeah.
I went from working full time in PR and doing some sales and marketing work and just being married to my job and my career. And I traveled a lot for work and I was young, but it was everything. And when I got pregnant with our son, I fully expected to be working until the day before I delivered. And I got so sick and I got hyperemesis. I don't
Mm.
know if you're familiar with that, but basically where you just like never stop being sick and you're in the
Uh,
hospital getting
uh,
IVs and you are throwing
uh,
up all the time. And I just became like a shadow of my former self and never got out of bed and had to stop working. And so when my son was born, I was so grateful to physically feel like myself again, but
yeah.
and I was obsessed with him, just obsessed. And everything began to revolve around him. And as beautiful as that was, and as just both empowering and fulfilling that motherhood was, there was this major identity crisis that I was experiencing. I was this young new mom who went from finding so much of her worth and value was just tied up in, what I was accomplishing in my career, that now it
Yeah.
was I was a mom all day and nobody saw how hard I was working. Nobody saw my struggles. I felt very alone. I felt like I wasn't very good at being a mom. I had a really, really tough kiddo with sleeping issues and, there was postpartum, there was all of that fun stuff when you're a new
Yeah.
mom and you're just
Yep.
trying to find yourself. And it was then that I discovered the world of people writing about their experiences in motherhood, their experiences
Yeah.
in their career, their experiences in life and college and all the different things. And I just couldn't look away. And then I remember just thinking, well, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could share some of my
Mm-hmm.
experiences here. Maybe, you know, my family can read about what we're going through here since I'm not seeing them face to face. And so it really
Yeah.
started off as, like many of our blogs did back in the day,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
just a place for me to share about what was going on into my day to day life, to kind of, I think a lot of it was me processing what I was going
Mm.
through the writing and through the
Yeah.
sharing, that was a bit of my process. I remember that I would sit down to write about a tough day in motherhood, not knowing how I felt about it and still kind of in the throes
Yeah.
of overwhelm. And by the end of writing the post, I had found the silver lining, or I had,
Yeah.
found the purpose in the lesson and just really been a lot more at peace with a really difficult day. And so it became a little
Yeah.
bit of an addiction and an outlet for me. And I began to make all of these connections and really find a community. And then it was like we all sort of discovered at once, wait a second, not only do we love this, but we can monetize this. Like, this can also become a business. This can be something that we can use to help support our families and our dreams. And so then that's when it became like this side business for me for a long time, as I continue to grow my
Yeah.
family and as my husband, continued to build his career. I was always, running and working on Little Miss Mama in the background. And it was fun because it allowed me to live my life the way that I wanted to, but also include that as part of my job. They weren't really two separate things. They got to become the same.
Yeah.
So I still was able to feel very present for my kids and for my husband and, in life, and then make that part of what I was doing for my business as well, which was really, really fun. And so that's a
Yeah.
little bit of my, story in the blogging world. It was when I was pregnant with our daughter Stevie, I got sick again, as I got sick with every single one of my pregnancies.
Everyone.
Yes,
Oh, not
literally
fair.
every single one.
Oh,
They honestly, it just got worse and worse with each one. And
oh my
hers
gosh.
was the toughest. And I think that I was also older and wiser and prepared, and I had been
Yeah.
down this road, and she was, planned, and I planned on getting sick. It was just like, you're gonna get sick. Don't don't get your hopes up. You're getting sick, like gear up for what you're in for here. And it was in that time that I just kind of had experienced a lot of personal growth and clarity about
Hmm.
just what I wanted, what was going to be next,
Mm-hmm.
what knowing that I had two sons who I adore and I love being a boy mom, but there was something about finding out that I was going to be a mom to a little girl that made me look at how I was doing everything as a mother and in a career very differently
Mm,
because of what my
yeah.
hopes were for her, you know? And so I remember
Yeah.
being pregnant with her when I knew it was a girl. I remember thinking, like, when she comes out, I'm going to be obsessed with her, but I'm not going to lose myself in her. I'm going to set an example for her. And my identity has to exist outside of motherhood again, because I want that for
Yeah.
her. I want her to have that as
Yeah.
well. And so that was when I began building this second community that is called Breathe and Bloom Essentials, which is where it's my wellness community, and it's just this community of women, building their own businesses, and it's my essential oils business. And when I
Yeah.
when I began that, it was really my way of, trying to expand my career and grow our income as a family and build something that could be a legacy that I was going to hand to her and be like, okay, let's do this together. If you want to do this, we're going to do this together. And something my mom did that I'm forever grateful. I was raised by a single mom who, was a really hardworking realtor, and she worked all the time she was working, but I never felt like she was working. I mean, I knew she was working all the time, but it never felt like I was a
Yeah.
victim to that. She always made me a part of it. And I remember going on appointments with her, and I remember getting picked up from school and going to the office, and I was never like, "Oh, I have to go to the office." I loved it. Like, I loved watching her work, and she would give me roles to help her out. And I really looked up to her, and I was able to just develop this entirely new and not very common these days, I think, sense of respect for what she was doing for herself and for me. And I think a lot of my work ethic came from
Yeah.
that. And when I was pregnant, I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what my kids are missing. I want them to see me building something. I want them to be a part of it. I want them to have a front row seat of what's possible and hard work, and that we can invent our own careers if we want to. And so that just was like the birth of this new adventure for me. And I began to build this community of women, and there's over 7,000 of us now. And that was about, gosh, 3.5 years ago, a little bit more, because I started that business when Stevie was a couple months old. And when
Yeah.
we got the unexpected news in the middle of a pandemic, that Stevie was sick, and we got the prognosis of, what we were really in for, and that I hate to say that there was no hope, because even though, the prognosis was that she wasn't going to survive this and that no one ever had, um, we still had a lot of hope outside of her survival,
Yeah.
and, a lot of hope in her legacy, and a lot of hope in the impact that she could have. So there was still hope. But when we received the reality of what we were in for, it was this community that I had built from the early blogging days, and those
Yeah.
relationships that I had built, and then the community that I had built since Stevie was born, of these just empowered women building a business that picked up all the pieces where I was falling short, or where I was breaking, or where I just needed a safe place to land. They all jumped in, and that's where the hope came from. So much of it, it came from my faith, and it came from this community of women who filled in all of those pieces. And it was this it was this supporting and eye-opening moment where I realized, okay, I did do it. And that was part of her legacy as well, because
Yeah.
she is the one who encouraged me and inspired me and motivated me to do it. And it was in those, like, hardest, darkest moments that they were shedding light, that I was able to be like, you have found a way to make your career your passion, and make it about more than
Yeah.
numbers, and a paycheck, and to make it really about community. Because I always say that if I'm going to spend the majority of my time doing something, which is our jobs, like our jobs, we spend the
Yeah.
majority of our time doing our
Yep.
job, I sure as heck better love it, and I better feel like it matters in
Yeah.
some way, you know? So,
Yeah.
and that brings us to today. That's my story in a
I
nutshell, kind of a big nutshell. Sorry about that.
no, there's just so many good things and hard things, and I mean life just does that over what 12 years. But
Yes.
I've loved watching it and um, seeing the evolution of blogging into a business and those things, and so much of what you said I can relate to. I mean, I remember I don't even think I knew your blog when I started mine, but then I was like, oh, there's this other amazing blogger who has such a similar name to the one I chose, but it was, I chose mine from my husband always called me Little Mama. And so motherhood was such a pillar to my initial start. And like you said, processing experiences through writing. And I thought, wow, that was so true for me too, And I felt like the more authentic stories I shared and the more just of my heart that I put on the internet, the more I was able to build this community, which then set us up well for Nickel and Suede as well to just have that continue. But how has that been hard for you to put your heart on your sleeve so much and to just wear that? Okay, I'm vulnerable. That's kind of my thing. That's been hard for me. I remember having a miscarriage and being in the hospital and being like, oh, I have to blog about this. And I knew it would help me and I knew it would help so many people, but I felt like this is kind of my thing. Like I talk about hard things, and I just remember feeling that like moment of a little bit of dread, like I have to put this out there because that's the trust that I built with this community. Um, how has that been for you? I think you said it's been rewarding to have this community, but putting so much of yourself out there.
It's been terrifying, right? As you were,
Fair, good. Me too.
terrifying is the best word I can use to describe it. I would say that I have over the years experienced the full range of emotion that
Yeah,
comes along with vulnerably sharing with the world.
yeah,
Obviously the world isn't watching me, but the world has access.
yeah,
And
yep,
some of those people are going to be incredibly supportive, and some
yeah,
of those people are not going to love you. And that
yeah,
all has to be okay. And it's one
yeah,
thing to say that, and it's another thing to feel that. And I
uh-huh,
spent the very first, well, I don't know, 6, 7 years of
yeah,
blogging, not being okay with it and pretending like I was. That's
yeah,
just the truth, is that it was very hard for me in the beginning. I remember, in those early days, you didn't know that you were signing up for that. You were just
mm-mm,
like sunshine and rainbows, and
mm-hmm,
I'm just going to be rewarded and patted on the back for being so vulnerable and honest in this space. And that was in the newer days
yeah,
of this revolution, but also I was much younger and I was a very different person, and I
yeah,
was in a period of finding myself, and I posted about things that I would cringe about today. Like I go back to those early posts and I just am like, "Oh, Ashley, you've come so far." Like, "Oh, why did you think it was okay to share that?" And but I leave those things there. Like they still
yeah,
exist out there. I don't go read them and look at them and make myself face them ever again, but I also know that, those early posts were part of my journey, and those
yeah,
cringe-worthy moments where I can see that in those early days I was a mix of vulnerability to because I wanted to help people so bad, and I wanted my story to matter to somebody. I wanted
yeah,
my trials to make a difference for somebody else. But the truth is that in those early days, I was also seeking a lot of validation and
yeah,
trying to find my worth in what other people thought about what I was doing or what I was creating or what I was producing, or like, do you like me? Do you like me? Am I enough for you? And I spent a lot of years in that space. And I will say that when I got my very first anonymous mean comment, I spiraled. Like I just
mm,
cried and it gutted me, and I analyzed it forever, and I took it personal, and then I got angry, and then I attacked back, and And then I learned, and then I simmered. And over the
Yeah.
years, as more and more of those came in, um, my approach began to shift and change, and so did my heart, and so did my maturity and my wisdom and my experience. And eventually, I was able to. Uh, I don't want to ever give any fuel, any what's the word? I don't ever want to encourage those trolls out there to do what they're doing, but in those early days, I had to find some of the truth in their words and to really
Yeah.
take a look at myself and take a
Yeah.
look at what I was putting on the internet and know that it came with a lot of responsibility. And
Yeah.
so I grew up a little bit through blogging and through motherhood and through sharing that experience. And so today, I remember, you know, the internet kind of went crazy when Stevie got sick, and it was honestly a really beautiful thing. There it
Yeah.
was it was a bit of a miraculous thing, if I'm being completely honest. It wasn't just like this, oh, Stevie went, you know, Stevie's cute dimples and her infectious laugh went viral. It was more like just the world is behind her in prayer and we could feel it. But that
Yeah.
also exposed us to, a lot of
The same
people,
old.
a
Yeah.
lot of people. And I remember, you know, my closest friends reaching out to me saying, I don't know, how are you navigating both of these things at the same time? How are you navigating
Yeah.
dealing with the grief and the loss and being strong enough in this area while also navigating what's happening in the social media world over here? And the first time somebody asked me that, I remember thinking like, I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't.
Mm.
I hadn't even
Yeah.
thought about it because everything I was doing and thinking was so wrapped up in her and being
Yeah.
available to her in the time that we had left with her. And that for me, I was only seeing the support that this community was because I didn't have time to focus on anything that was negative. And she made that really easy for me because I was going to
Yeah.
make, those final weeks that we had left with her matter. And when people would leave, you know, really judgmental, horrible stuff, I was able to look at it for, yeah, it would sting for a second, but honestly, it was like swipe, delete, swipe, block. And I learned that it was okay to protect my space on the internet, that that was my space, and that I was opening the door and I was giving access to whoever wanted to show up. And not everybody had to love me or agree, but it was going to be a space of kindness and acceptance and an open mind and an open heart. And so I protect that fiercely today.
Yeah.
And I think that, just having lived through what our family has lived through, I'm able to see that the positive impact is so much greater than any of the negativity that I am forced to face with as a result of being vulnerable. And that it is so much stronger. And that I wouldn't have been able to experience any of that if 12 years ago I wasn't willing to
Yeah.
put myself out there and, expose myself vulnerably. Then I wouldn't have received all of this support. I wouldn't have this community. I wouldn't have, her legacy wouldn't be what I'm so grateful it is today if it wouldn't have been for the
Yeah.
courage of putting myself out there. So it's paid off. The vulnerability and the courage pays off. And the connections we make as a
Yeah.
result of that are so much stronger and so much more authentic and based off just like real things. Kylie, you
Yeah.
probably know that I say all the time that I think we connect more just as people over pain more than anything else.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible. Like, it
Yeah.
sounds like I don't want to do that. But when you think about the people
No.
in your life that you trust the most, that you love the most, that you're the most deeply connected to and enjoy spending time with the most, it's the people that you have been in the trenches with. Those
Yeah.
are the relationships we value. And I try to treat social media the same way.
Yeah. 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 I completely agree. And I've I think try to approach blogging and being on the internet the same way. I can totally identify with the struggles of, oh, I want people to like me. And like, I mean, I think we all deal with that in real life all the time. Like, I just want to be liked. Like, I'm likable. I do so many good things. And getting over that is a really hard thing. And, I talk a lot about like everything starts somewhere and you just have to start and get going. And I just can't imagine, time passed and like your life happened, and had you not started blogging and sharing so much so early on, or myself too, it's like I wouldn't have learned these lessons that I needed to use right now. And just to see the growth that's come through your story is really inspiring. I think we are set up for the challenges that come our way if we're willing to be brave a little bit, like all along the way. You
Yes,
know,
that's beautiful. Yes.
that's been hard for me too. I mean, I feel like I've walked a different path from you, in many ways, but just putting yourself out there and trying new things and doing things that are hard and facing things you've never faced before, I think everybody resonates with to some degree. So watching you do it so gracefully, and honestly is really and encouraging for all of
Oh,
us.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, So I was reading on your blog a little bit. I was reading a couple. Recently, you talked about two things you promised yourself um, this last year in the hard times, and it was inspiring to me because I've felt the same way about those things. So, what are the two things you promised, and kind of where did that come from?
The two things I promised, gosh, which blog post is this?
Let's see. It was about
It
getting
was
ready
okay.
for the day. It was about
That's
getting
what
ready
I
for the
thought it
day.
was.
So, yeah, yeah. I'm sure you've
I
made a
know.
lot of
I'm like, oh
promises.
my
I mean, I
goodness.
think to deal with things, we have to make a lot of deals with ourselves, and
Is so true. And this one, I
yeah,
mean, the one that's coming to my mind, the
yeah,
heaviest from that blog post is getting dressed, right? Like
yeah,
getting
yeah,
up
yep.
and
Getting up, getting dressed.
getting ready. And especially since, so much of those hardest moments of my life were also coexisting with a pandemic. Um,
Yes.
Gosh, we had every excuse. I had every excuse in the world to stay in bed and to not
Yeah.
face the world and to not face myself. And I remember after losing her and kind of being in the thick of like, what is next for us? What is next for me? What is life supposed to look like now? What does the
Yeah.
world even look like anymore? I remember thinking it was all just too overwhelming. Like facing all of it was all too overwhelming. And so,
Yeah.
with the help of my therapist, it was like, well, you don't have to face all of it right now. Like just take one step a day in a direction, in that direction. Just one. It doesn't even have to
Yeah.
be a new step every day. Just do one thing. And for me, the big one was getting out of bed and getting ready.
Yeah.
And when I say getting ready, I mean I didn't have to like I just had to put clothes on. I just couldn't stay in the clothes that I slept in.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's fair.
oftentimes there was still a stretchy waist and, cozy cotton, but it was really just about getting ready. And I watched that set a really good example for my boys,
Yeah.
that I was so worried that after losing her that they were going to be afraid that they were going to lose me. Not, they weren't afraid that I was going to die. I'm sorry to get like super heavy here, but that they were just going to lose their mom as they knew her. And so many people had told us that, so many different strangers would reach out to us and say, I lost a sibling when I was a kid and we never talked about it, but my mom never got out of bed and she was never the same again. And I'm still dealing with it today. And I remember thinking, like, I can't do that to them. They've already been through more than
No.
any kid this age should have to go through. They can't lose me as they know me too. They need to recognize me. And so I would get up and I would get dressed. And it didn't solve everything, but
Yeah.
um, but it kept me moving, and it kept me moving in the right direction. And it reminded them that I was still there. You know,
Yeah.
I reminded myself that I
Did
was still
you
there.
Yeah, I'm imagining, so many times you hear, oh, it's this way when you have this experience, and this is the stereotype or whatever, and then you live it, and you're like, no wonder that's the stereotype. It's so hard to not do that.
Yes.
Like, did you instantly be like, now I know why they said that that's what their parents, how they dealt with it? Like, that's the way you feel like dealing with it. Um,
Yes, I think that,
I,
oh, it's
I
so tricky because I think it was also just a very different time, and there was
yeah,
we I think that grief has evolved a lot, and it's my hope that I
yeah,
still think it has a long way to go in the way that we
yeah,
look at it as a culture. And
yeah,
I think we've come so far from just the generation before us, and the generation after us is going to take it even further. But I think
yeah,
that people never grieved publicly, and
mm,
that maybe there was a stigma that if we're grieving publicly, we're weak, or we're selfish, or we're self-seeking, or we're dramatic, or whatever it was a stigma in previous generations
yeah,
about grief.
yeah,
Really, I think that we're designed, as human beings, we're designed to grieve collectively and as a community, and we're
yeah,
not supposed to be grieving in private. And so for me, it actually felt very naturally to be a little bit more public in my
uh,
grief. And it felt like the right thing
yeah,
to do. And now, does that mean I didn't want to like just really embrace my introverted self and isolate? I still feel that every single day. That's just my natural inclination of who I am. When I'm
yeah.
overwhelmed, I love to isolate, and I'm very introverted. So that never
Same here.
changed. That never ever changed. But
Dang.
right, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. But
uh,
as far
yeah,
as, approaching that grief, and that always felt a little bit more natural to me, and just better to not lock myself
yeah,
in the room and not talk about it with them, and to let them see me cry, and to talk about her every single day, and not cringe, not have everybody in the room cringe when I bring up her name. Like, is it okay if we still talk
yeah.
about her? Heck yes, we better talk about her. We tell stories about her all the time. Her name gets mentioned 1,000 times in our home, and it's not just sad. It's mostly us laughing and remembering stories. And I don't think that, you talked about how you blogged about your miscarriage and how difficult that was. And think about, I mean, it's still difficult for people to share about that, but think about how much that has changed just in the last decade. That no
Yeah,
one
it's
used to talk
amazing.
about it. We didn't used to talk about those things.
Yeah,
And it was the courage of you vulnerably doing that that is letting people grieve collectively, and to say, like, guess what? Me too. That thing you're feeling, turns out you're not alone in
yeah,
feeling that. You're not
yeah,
alone. And we only know we're not alone because of the brave people who started that movement of sharing that. So,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that was a bit of a tangent from
yeah.
your original question that I now have forgotten, but
No,
that's where it's led us.
that's okay. I think that that's one thing I've really noticed about you. I know you've, probably not willingly become a grief expert, but I feel like you are so good about talking about grief and sharing your experience with it as you've learned about it, but in like a positive way. It's not in just a sad way. It's in a, this is life. This is what, we all experience grief in many different levels in our life. And so just normalizing talking about grief and feeling it out loud, I think is really so important. My youngest has had a cleft lip and cleft palate, and that whole pregnancy was hard. But and he's 3.5 now, but I still get a message every couple of weeks of saying, I just found out that this is going to be my story. Thank you for putting out what you put out. Is there any more you can tell me? And it's like that rewarding feeling of being a lifeline for somebody. Like, yes, I am somebody you can feel like and you can ask me, and I'll put it to you straight. It's definitely been worth it, but it didn't make it less hard for
Exactly.
sure.
Yes, it doesn't make it. That's the other stigma that we're breaking, is that we think that, oh, if I do all the things I'm supposed to do, and if I share in
Yeah,
this way, then it's all going to be easier. The pain of the loss, of the grief, of the trial, of the worry, of all of those things that we're going to experience in this life, a lot of it never goes away and it never gets easier. You just
Yeah.
find the purpose in it and you just turn it into something
Yeah.
valuable. And
Yeah.
I've had to be very, very careful. And a big personal lesson for me is that there are a lot of people in the thick of some very serious loss and grief, similar to what I have gone through. And it can be incredibly hurtful to have this silver lining approach with people when they're in the thick of grieving.
Yeah.
And, so I've learned to be really careful about what the way that I share that, because it's never my intention to be like, it's okay that you lost the person you love more than anything, because there's a silver lining, because I don't believe that. Like, I
Yeah.
love to look for the silver, but no, I
Yeah.
don't think that it's okay. And I don't think that, like, oh, well, it was meant to be. You were supposed to lose them. It's all right. Like, so many people will be blessed. I would, I'm sorry, everyone, but I would trade all of your blessings in a heartbeat if I could have her back. Like, I would selfishly do that.
Yeah. To
But I
not.
can't. I
Yeah.
can't have her back.
Yeah.
And amidst the pain and amidst the grief, I choose to also see all the good. It doesn't take
Yeah.
away anybody's pain, and it doesn't take away any of the feelings they have about that loss. But I also have to keep myself open to seeing the good. And that is like, that's me doing that in honor of her. Like, how disappointed would she be in
Yeah.
me if she's like, ah, like, I need you to, like, if you don't pay attention to all the good that can happen, then this just becomes an even bigger tragedy. So,
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I think it's that. I mean, we talk about being everyday
oh,
brave
I love
here, and it can be as trivial as putting on earrings every day. I mean, that's kind of what I have seen our customers do and our friends, our community do, where it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to put on today that makes me feel like I can be myself today. And there's just so many reasons we need that boost, but just choosing to be brave every day, even through whatever it is we're going through. I was talking to my husband the other day and I was like, just complaining about some hard thing. And he's like, I think the only way out is through, which is him throwing words back at me. But it's like, okay, you're right, fine. Like, the only way to get through this or out of this situation is I just have to keep going through it. And, that's what comes to mind to me when you're talking about grief and losing somebody. And it's like, you can't get out of it.
yeah,
Like, it happened. So how do you get through it, and how do you help other people through it? Because there's no way to stop it from ever happening for anybody ever again. It's just, that's not life. So I think sharing authentically how you're getting through it, I think, is probably the most good that we can do
exactly,
out of it.
exactly.
So
Thank you. I
yeah,
could not agree more.
yeah. Well, we've talked about how you make every day brave. We've talked about hope and optimism. And now we can talk about something really trivial, the collection.
Yes.
No. Earring. We can talk about earrings. No, but I hope that, as you're listening to this podcast, as the listeners are listening, this is why we wanted to partner with Ashley. She is, I'm begrudgingly living some of these values. Maybe someday she's begrudgingly living these values, but this optimism, this bravery, this every day, just, being authentic, and all the things that you do. So we've partnered on this collection. I Not only do you have, I think, this great voice and writing and all the things, but you also have really great style. Everybody loves your style, your try-ons, and your so tell me about your style. What kind of inspired this, and what's your style that you? How has style even helped you right now? I feel like I've seen you doing try-ons, and I'm like, she's so cute. You don't look like you wanted to stay in bed this morning.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you. You're very generous, because I do not consider myself a stylish person at all. I think that it's funny because, oh
No one will
gosh.
believe that.
Well,
You're Go look at her Instagram.
I will say, since we talked about in this podcast, since we talked earlier about those early days of blogging, we just have to, like, pay
Yeah,
homage to some of those early style posts just in the beginning that are still up there, of like those early.
agreed.
I just want to say that all of these new air quote influencers, because I have such a mixed relationship with that word, but that are popping up today
Uh-huh.
that don't know the ugly, hideous world that we paved for them.
Not knowing.
Of
Yeah. How do you take a
Oh
picture? How
my
do you stand?
goodness,
How do
all like the awkward things that we did, and
uh,
before there were filters and brightening of photos and all of the grainy things that I posted, and the big giant belts that I would wrap
mhm.
around my dresses, and so many very it was been an
Yes.
intriguing journey. Yes.
The scarves.
Yes,
Scarves in every
exactly. And
way.
much like I think that I, found my voice in blogging, and that I, grew up in that period and sort of evolved into,
Yeah.
I tried on a lot of other people's voices for a while before I found my own.
Yeah.
And it feels so good when you find your own. Well, very similarly, I think that I spent a lot of years trying on a lot of other people's styles. And those are the cringeworthy moments
I
when I
feel you.
look back at those
Yeah.
earlier posts where I'm like, that wasn't even me. I can look at the person I was trying to dress like here, and I can look at the person, like, I can see it. and
Yeah.
and I think we all go through that evolution. I think we all do. And the moment we arrive and we have
Yeah.
found, like, we're showing up as us, oh, does that feel good? So, how do I
Yeah.
describe my style? I would describe my style as like just me. And me is, I have to be comfortable. It
Yes.
is so important to me to be comfortable. I have to be able to like breathe. I don't want to have to unbutton my top button. I know that that doesn't sound very stylish, but that's like my number one style tip. Don't wear clothes where you feel like you
It's
have
a
to
good
unbutton
rule.
your top button. Like, buy a bigger size, buy something with an elastic waistband, whatever it means to be comfortable. Because for me, comfort plays a massive role in my self confidence and the image that I have of myself. And
Mm.
when I
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable in my clothes,
Yes.
I feel like a fraud. I feel like I'm walking around not being myself, and I
Yeah.
feel like I'm sucking in, or I'm not sitting in the way that I want to, or I'm just not being myself, and I'm not showing up as myself. So being
Yeah.
comfortable in what we're wearing is so important. My style, I think, is very neutral and basic, and then I like to
Yeah. Yeah.
accessorize or add a scrunchie or add a cute pair of dangly earrings to my otherwise very basic attire. When I say basic, I am a jeans and a t-shirt type of girl, and I am very much a leisure wear. And by that I mean sweatpants. Nothing has ever made me happier than sweatpants being in style, because when I think of my ideal style, it is very sweatpants driven. So
So you were
exactly,
sweatpants before
exactly.
2020,
So
huh?
those are th did you
Before
hear
they
that
were cool.
explanation, Kylie? That is proof that I am not a stylish person, that I described it as elastic waistband.
Uh, no, okay. She's not giving herself credit that she deserves. She does throw on a great hat every once in a while, a cute dress, I jumpsuits. Oh, I
I
think I've seen
I
overalls.
live for
Anyways,
overalls, I
but no,
do,
I
and
love.
rompers and jumpers, and you're right. Let
I,
me let me backtrack. I love clothes. I love clothes. I love
yeah,
shopping for clothes. I
but you're not fussy. I like it's not
exactly.
ever fussy. It's very. It
But I
looks
shop for
like you
comfort,
just threw
and
it
I
together.
shop
Yeah,
to feel more like
yeah,
myself. So, if that makes sense.
yeah. Well, and that's what yeah, I love that you said that. I think comfortable could mean sweatpants for some people, but for some women, comfortable means something totally different. And so I love that you kind of put it towards like just feeling like yourself. I mean, I totally have done, I did the cardigan years, I did the basics and, all the style that just wasn't quite me. And I feel like as I've come into my style more, it's not as replicable. Like, it's not like everybody wants to dress like, can I have that whole outfit? Because it's unique, it's eclectic, it's weird, but I'm almost like, that's fine. I don't need anybody to copy my exact outfit. What I want is for them to find the same freedom. Like, I want all of our customers to find their style because it's not about having my haircut or having this. It's about what's your haircut? How do you feel most like yourself? And Doesn't need to be Doc Martens.
Yeah.
It could be just little flip flops. It could be Uggs. It could be running shoes all the time. I don't know, but you got to
Yes, I
feel like
couldn't agree
yourself and
more.
get to
And
do it
that
on
doesn't
purpose.
mean that
So,
I don't sometimes, see a friend or see somebody else on social media and think like, oh, that haircut, I'm going to try that haircut. And it doesn't mean that
yeah.
I'm not being authentic. It means that,
Yeah.
other people are oftentimes
Agree.
helping me find my style. And a case in point is like,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
literally how I wear my hair all the time. And this is not something that is going to be Pinterest worthy that I woke up with bedhead, but then I pop it up in a scrunchie. But it's also a big part of my style is just having the like what feels like me is the messy hair with the scrunchie, but still throw on the earrings and go to the store or go to
Hmm.
brunch with girlfriends with this hair. And maybe it's not going to become like this viral trend to have messy hair, but maybe it's going to inspire somebody else that I felt compelled to wear my hair that way. And now I have permission to
Yeah.
have bedhead and like style my bedhead
Precisely.
with a scrunchie. There's permission in that. And that feels authentic to
Yeah.
me too, Ashley.
I
That's my
love it.
hope.
Yes. That's yes, I just wish I could give permission slips out nonstop. Like that's my goal. Like you have permission to be this way. You have permission to be this way. Like we all have permission. It doesn't need to be, copying somebody
Yep.
because they are that way. It's because, oh my goodness, like we're the
Yes.
same. I see me in you and
Yes.
I think I can show that now. And I think kind of the thread through this we've talked about is like you learn by trying things and you learn by going along a little bit. And so like I found my style the same way you did where we tried lots of things that weren't quite us. We tried on a lot of things and now we've kind of found it, but never would have if we hadn't started. So I'm always just like, just start, just try, just put on a pair of earrings, just go try those, I don't know, biker shorts. Like, you might look goofy for a day, but you're going to figure out really quick how you
You
like
know
to
what? I
do it
had a
for
little
yourself.
sort of
So,
epiphany as you
yeah.
were saying that, and you inspired me because when I was, saying, "Oh, I'm not stylish," it's not even about the reason that that was like even silly is it's not about being stylish. It's about discovering our own personal style. And you kind of know when you've done that because I was thinking about
Yes.
times that or like when I go shopping with friends or when it's my birthday and they get me something and how they always just nail it.
Yeah.
Like my friends just nail it. And I realize because they're like, they see something like that's so Ashley. Like she would wear this. This is so Ashley. Or if we're out,
Yeah.
my girlfriends will point and be like, that is so you. Oh my gosh. And I look and sure enough, they're exactly right. And I think that that is okay. Not like because that's so Ashley because it's so stylish. No, like it's so Ashley because that's Ashley's style.
Right.
And Ashley is very
Right.
clear on what her style is. So
Yeah.
I think it's more about that.
That's awesome. I think that's such a compliment and a really proof that you've kind of made it. You've made it. You've figured out your style, and other people can see it too. I've got 5 boys, and my second son is the one that every time we go somewhere, I can find a gift for him. Like I can find a
Yep.
souvenir almost anywhere because he's so knows himself and I know him so well. It's like, and it's terrible, but it's always like knives and daggers and like medieval things and jewels and gems. But he's just so particular, loves history and things that like anywhere we're at, we're like, well, Kessler would love that. And it's like, we can't find a souvenir for anybody except him because he just knows who he is and what he likes. And I think that that's something that it really inspires me to be like, I want to be that sure of what I like and who I am and talk about it and share it. And that kind of confidence is
Oh,
just,
I
I mean, it
love
makes
that.
us love him, right? Like we love him for those things. And I think your friends are the same way. They love you because they know you. And when we let people know us through our style and through like being okay with sharing ourselves, I think that's that community we're talking about. So,
Yes, exactly. That's exactly. And that's actually being vulnerable in your style.
yeah, yeah,
Being, not afraid to show up as your authentic self in what you're also wearing on the
yeah.
outside. Not, we talk a lot about the
I
inside, but
know.
hey, we can show ourselves on the outside too. I do have to say, Kylie, that I don't know if you know this about me, but since I was a kid, have collected knives.
No, I do remember seeing that on Instagram. Yeah.
And I still do as an adult. So I need you to know whatever
You're
you
like,
would pick up for him, I would
Send
love
it
as
your way.
well.
Okay. Yeah, no, we were it's always the most ridiculous things. We were camping the other week and
Hmm.
at the like gift shop at the campground, I'm like, that dagger is so cool. He would love that. I'm like buying this $15 dagger for my 9-year-old. But,
Oh,
it's just him. So it's really fun to know him. So, yeah.
I feel very good about
Yeah. All right,
it.
it'll be fine. So, okay. Well, as we wrap up, I think, what are you most excited about going forward? Kind of what's your, now that you've been sitting in this space of what's next, I feel like I've seen you coming, kind of heading in that direction a little bit. But what's next? What are you? I don't feel like you're staying still. So what are you looking forward to?
That's that's a very good way to put it. I don't feel like you're staying still. Yes, see, that's a tricky one
Yeah.
because I don't stay still and I never do. And I'm a person who handles difficult things by moving.
Yeah.
And so what's next for me is the challenge to myself to keep moving in positive
Hmm.
directions, but also to try to be still a little
Yeah.
bit.
That's
And
fair.
that's
Yeah.
really, really, really difficult for me, if
Yeah.
not honestly impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in this new personal growth journey that I never expected myself to be, but I have so much to learn.
Yeah.
So I have to learn how to not put my entire life on hold and stop everything that I've, you know, been building and growing and dreaming about for so long, but also to pause
Yeah.
and to feel. Um, as far as what I'm most excited for, oh, well, I am really excited for this collection. I just have to say that. I am
I,
so excited for it. I know that that's like a complete side note, but I really, really, really am. And I want to say, like, I was thinking about it today, just kind of about some of the inspiration behind some of these pieces that we've come up with.
yeah.
And I want to say that it has been so fun partnering with you guys because, we've been, for those who don't know, we've been sending mood boards back and
Yep.
forth and different ideas and colors. And I've collaborated with, people in the past and I've worked with people in the past. And you guys just immediately, when I sent my very first mood board over, there's always this worry of like, is it going to translate? Like,
Are
are
they
they
going to
going to
get it?
see me in this? Are they going to understand what I'm hoping and picturing here? And I remember when you guys came back with like those initial designs and you're like, okay, how are we translating here? Just this back and forth of the design
Yeah.
process was number one, so much fun, but it was also so natural. And I
Yeah.
felt like there was just, you didn't skip a beat in seeing me and translating that into these pieces. And that was such a fun process. I remember being
That's
like,
great.
I just don't have any feedback. I know I'm supposed to be giving feedback here, but I really feel like you just went into my brain and, we were able to combine like your beautiful designs with, my whimsy and vibe and favorite colors to
Yeah.
just create this collection that is perfectly, it's like the perfect balance in my opinion of classic and whimsical.
Yeah.
And that is what I love about style. I love to have like my base layers be
Yep.
completely classic and then to throw on touches of whimsy that can go with anything. And I mean, I can't even tell you how many earrings I have from you. Like it's probably over 50,
That's amazing.
and I can wear them with a sweatsuit. I can wear
Yeah.
them to church with a dress. I can wear them with denim shorts and a tank top and a bathing suit down to the beach, or I can wear them to like a formal event. I can wear them for all the things from a strictly function, not even a design aspect. They're weightless.
It's
Which
true.
is my one of my favorite qualities about them
Yeah.
is I'm not going to have the earring holes of our parents' generation that are like an inch long and saggy, but from all of the
No.
heavy 1980s earrings that they wore.
Yeah, no.
But
Yeah,
what
it's the
I was
comfort for you.
yes. And I was thinking today that really the design elements of those four earrings are heart, star, rainbow, clouds. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just like the ultimate whimsy in each of those
Yeah.
designs, which
Yeah.
is also a little bit for me on a personal note is so just my ode to Stevie and just seeing
Yeah.
little bits of her in everything that I do. And a lot of my way of expressing how I'm feeling and expressing myself is through creativity. And
Yeah.
so I'm grateful to be able to also just express and share about her through ways that are not even just obviously about her all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
my star earrings, the in my most favorite green color ever. Like those are her. Those are my stars for Stevie earrings.
Yeah.
And that's what they are to me. And that's not what we called them. And that's not necessarily what they are, but that's what they are to me.
Yeah.
And so, and the sweetheart ones are the ones that, I wore when we buried her. And I wore again in honor of her birthday the following year when she wasn't with us. And they're just something that, I have a memory attached to the moments that I've worn each one of them now. So to me,
Yeah.
they're more than, an accessory. They have a story built into them. And every
Yeah.
time I'm putting them on, it's like this flood of memories and emotions that are just filling me up as I'm putting them into my ear. It's like the simplest of things, but
Yeah.
it's so much of the beauty in these designs as well for me. So I'm really looking
Well,
forward to that to answer
you
your
couldn't have
question.
sold them better, but I don't know. We really didn't take it lightly that, we have followed you, we care about you, we wanted to make sure that what we were doing was a fit. And I think that just shows like what a great fit it is really for there to be such a great relationship. And that, I do feel like these represent you so well. And you really spoke to how these earrings, I sometimes I talk about the earrings like I discovered them, like I dug them up out of the ground because this idea just like came and like happened to me, and I feel like so honored to be the one that gets to design and share and things. But I'm not the one at the beginning who attached meaning to these, but there is so much meaning that happens for so many women with a big pair of earrings that are comfortable, that make them feel good, no matter what else is going on. So thanks for partnering with us and for being such a great representative of everything we really are trying to lead with and all of that. So
Of course, of course.
awesome. Okay, well, where can everybody find you? You can find the collection, California Dreamin' with Little Miss Mama, on nicholandsway.com. But where can everybody find you so they can follow along?
Yes, yes. I would love for you guys to come connect with me on social media. On Instagram,
Yeah,
I am at Little Miss Mama, and that's little all spelled out. MISSMOMMA, and also online on my blog at littlemissmama.com.
perfect. And then if they're interested in your other business, your other handle
Yes,
is
my essential oils and wellness business is Breathe and Bloom Essentials,
there.
and I'm on Instagram is Breathe and Bloom Essentials and also breatheandbloomessentials.com.
Perfect. That's
Yay.
you sound like me. I'm always like, okay, I have 7 handles I can share
Exactly.
with you.
Exactly. Anyone have a pen?
uh, who wants the, yeah, and business cards are coming back. So, anyways, okay. Well, so good to have you. So good to be able to talk through all these things. Thanks for sharing your heart. And I know it's going to inspire so many women, as you've already done.
It was
So,
so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me. You're the easiest person to talk to, so I appreciate you having me today.
thanks. All right. Well, we will catch up with you soon and head over and you guys go follow Ashley and shop the collection. So, thanks so much,
Yay.
guys. See you next
Bye.
time. Thanks for listening today to With Kilee Nichols. I hope that today you felt empowered to take one more step towards living the best version of you. Tune in next week for another episode, and in the meantime, you can find us elsewhere on the internet. You can find me on Instagram at Kilee Nichols and at Nickel and Suede. You can also find us at nicholandswade.com. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.